Good morning, Keith.
Morning.
How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. You?
Yeah, looking great there with the authentic beam in the background. Loving the environment. Welcome.
Costs too much to remove it.
Welcome back to Crystal Cabin for our
Thank you.
second episode. Thank you for
Yeah.
agreeing. We said, didn't we, at the end of the last one, we could talk for so long. We need to break it up into sections. So this is part 2 of many. So today we're going to talk about emotions. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Over to you.
Can.
Let's have a chat about your experience then with let's go give people a little refresh of where you were and what your journey looked like.
Yeah, so before I met you, I'd been through the whole mill of the medical world and stuff like that, and finally found people who said, you know, this isn't a physical thing, this is a mind-body thing. And that's where my journey started, because it was just a complete new world to me, and I was absolutely fascinated with it. And just jumped straight in to try and learn as much as I could. And pretty quickly I got to grips with this concept of the emotional aspects of your life, and how those emotions can get trapped in your body and cause pain and things like that. And that pretty much sounded like, well, that must be what's happening to me, because there was no other explanation, and it made sense. I mentioned, yeah, plenty of those all the time, still. But yeah, so I, as I said on the last video, I went a bit too deep with the research and sort of hammered it a bit too much. But I was just curious as to what my problem was, what was going on. And funnily enough, you then learn that, well, it's not a problem, nothing's wrong. Your mind and your body and your spirit are doing everything exactly right. It's all working perfectly, and that takes a bit to get your head around. But there's a process of what's going on. So I'd sort of come to grips with that, and got to the point where I knew that there wasn't anything significant in my past. There wasn't a big traumatic event that had caused emotions so severe that, you know, that they were buried because my subconscious thought that I couldn't handle them, and the pain was a distraction. And you know, we can get into that in a bit more detail, but yeah. I got to that point where I knew there was nothing bad like that. There was just a combination of things, which is called life.
Yeah.
And it starts from when you're in the womb. You pick up on the emotions of your mother and the surroundings and the emotions she's going through while she's carrying you.
Yeah.
And then through the birth, and then obviously the first 6-7 years of your life, you're basically a sponge. Your brain is operating in the same brain waves as hypnosis. That's why kids just soak everything up.
Absolutely.
And that's it then. All those beliefs and things that you've gone through in those early years, that then forms you, and you live your life to those values, whether you agree with them or not. You don't know at the time, but obviously now you're growing up, you've got some issues, you're trying to figure them out. You don't need to live by those sort of rules, if you like, based on your ego, which came from all of that. You can take control and fix it, and that's what, you know, this is what I've been trying to do.
Let me just come in there. That was an amazing, an absolutely amazing way of introducing how it's all come about. So
yeah,
to hear you talking so fluently from all the things that you've picked up since is fantastic. Yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself, and I just had to say that. So please go ahead.
Well, I've had 50 years experience now, but I've only really known what I'm doing for the last 4. So there's a bit of catching up, and that's the other side of it. You know, you need patience with this sort of thing, because I'm trying to reverse 40 odd years of stuff.
Absolutely.
And, so it builds up, and that's why I came to you, because I felt like I was stuck. There was just all this emotion that was trapped in my body and stuck, and it needed to move. How do you move it? Reiki. That's, you know, for that particular thing, that's what you do. So again, as the geek that I am, right, okay, how does this work? You know, wasn't content with just lying there and going, right, fix me. I had to understand what was going on.
Okay.
And
So what's
you
your
know,
understanding? What does that look like?
what's my understanding? I do not know.
Yeah, I'm dying to hear this.
So to backtrack a little bit, and this will tie into the law of attraction, and people think, oh my God, there's that thing again. Well, it's everywhere. You know, if you're a bit skeptical, then your subconscious is going to pick up on that. You know, oh, this Reiki's never going to work. Well, guess what? So an open mind is the key thing. You know,
yeah.
no one can really give 100% accurate description of what's going on.
No.
Because everyone could do that, and everyone could argue to death about who's right and who's wrong, because we haven't got this. You know, yeah, I did a lot of research trying to find scientific proof of this, that, and the other, and there is to some degree. But at the end of the day, this stuff's beyond most of us. In fact, all of us, and we're getting there. You know, there's been an awakening over the last 20 odd years, and there's more and more people tuning in to where we should be. So hopefully that'll gain momentum as time goes on. But for me, but again, it all goes back to your ego, how you live your life, what values and rules you live by, whether they're right or wrong. It's just the way you were brought up, what you picked up on as you were growing up, and there could be some bad habits in there. And I know from my research, I know what it all came from. I know what it is, and I know how to fix it. But I know it's not going to fix overnight. As I say, I've got 40 odd years of it to reverse. I know it's not going to take 40 odd years to change it back again.
Not.
And I know there's people out there who've had what they call spontaneous remissions, where they've fixed in an instant. The doctor that I first found that introduced me to this was specific. His area was back pain, and people have read his book, and it's gone click, and the pain's gone. You know, so it does happen. But for me, I know from my experience that when your thoughts create feelings. You know, that's the way round it happens. You're thinking about something, it creates a feeling. So if you're feeling a certain way, then you need to sit there and think, okay, right, what am I thinking? What's going on in my head that's causing these feelings?
Yeah.
And if you do that long enough, especially if it's bad thoughts creating bad feelings, it can become chronic. You know, from my experience, we live in fight or flight, or you know, we're living in that mode where it's meant to be a temporary process. You know, there's an attack. If you see a gazelle being chased by a lion, it goes into fight or flight mode. It runs away, and if it's lucky enough to escape, it'll find a clearing, it'll relax, and you'll see this in the animal world. It'll shake, and there's a reason I mentioned that. I'll hopefully come back to it.
Don't go there.
And you get rid of all of the chemicals that have been created in your body, because that's what creates those feelings. It's chemicals that are
Hormones
released into your body, hormones, all sorts of stuff, adrenaline. And for a short-term thing, that saves you. So it's not a bad feeling. It's a good feeling in that sense. But when it becomes chronic, when you're in that sort of fight or flight mode all the time, then that's a bad thing. And that's I've been in fight or flight for decades, and I know that.
It uses up so much of your energy as well. It's exhausting to stay in that state of alert. Yeah,
you can't grow. You know, rest and repair, which is where you should be living life. That's not happening. You're in fight or flight mode. Your digestion's shut down. You don't need to.
Yeah, all your blood's gone to your brain.
Yeah, everything's going to your muscles. It needs you to run. So there's no time for eating food or anything like that. And this is just the body working the way it's designed.
Yeah.
And it's being driven by the subconscious mind. So you can get to that point where it's chronic, and that produces tension, inflammation, all that sort of stuff. And I know now from my research that that's what was going on with me. There wasn't a disease or an infection, it was tension. So then you're looking at, well, where is the tension? Well, for me, it was in my pelvic area, my abdominal area. So you go and find out, okay, well, what does that mean? Because there's a lot of stuff out there that's thousands of years old, but then there's more modern people who've written about it. So if you pick up Louise Hay's book, there's an A to Z at the back. You know, if you've got pain or discomfort in these parts of your body, this is what it's caused by. And mine hit the nail on the head. The film Emotion that you tagged recently, there's a process in there where you can find out where's the emotion trapped. Again, hit the nail on the head. EAM, which you introduced me to recently, and dowsing, which I've done as well. You know, doesn't matter where I look, everything I try, it all points to the same thing. It's trapped emotion. And the reason for it is you can get to a point, it's either a major traumatic event like a car crash, or you were abuse when you were a child, things like that. Some people have major traumatic events, and after that they're different people. Other people, it's just lots of things just building up. And what can happen is you can have something which just tips you over the edge, or it's just a big event, or whatever. But what will happen is that your subconscious mind will think, when you go through a certain situation and those thoughts are in your head, the subconscious mind doesn't know whether this is a real event happening now or whether you're thinking about something happening in the past. It doesn't know, but it reacts in the same way. So those feelings are then generated. But if it's something that was really scary, or something that I know myself, I didn't have a big event like that, but I know for specific occasions through my life, I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, I never ever want to feel like that again. Now that on its own is fine. We can all say things and think things, but if you go through that and you've got the emotional charge with it as well, then your subconscious will take note. And just like in the law of attraction, your wish is my command. So I've done all the research. I know I shouldn't do the research, but I know that from a certain point onwards, and again, I've had spiritual healers say this started so many years ago and it all hit the nail on the head. If certain things happen, and again, when we were cavemen, it would be a saber-toothed tiger chasing us. Now it's your boss coming to your desk at 10 o'clock saying, where's this report? Or it's your spouse saying, where's my dinner? You know, it can be anything, but it triggers the same response. And if your subconscious thinks that those feelings are too scary, it'll protect you from them. So it buries them and suppresses them in the body. Now, what will happen over time is that builds up, and it'll build up in a certain part of the body, but it's tied to one of the chakras, or more than one. And over time, that build up of emotion, because as we said before, the body's releasing chemicals, which is what these feelings are that we feel. So that's got to go somewhere. But if you're suppressing it, you don't know you're suppressing it. Your subconscious is doing it to protect you. Like I said earlier, everything's working correctly. This is how it's meant to work. You're not broken. It's all working the right way. Over time, that trapped emotion will become pain. And again, that pain will distract you, because your subconscious thinks that this pain is safer than those emotions that it's hiding from you. So it's a protection thing. So I know that all through the pain and stuff I've gone through, my subconscious was just trying to protect me.
Fabulous.
The challenge is, the challenge is, I'm like, well, I've learned all this consciously, but it's still happening. Well, the subconscious learns in a completely different way to the conscious mind. But the key here is that you're now in a situation where you've got all this trapped emotion and it needs to move. And for me, I was at the point where I thought that I don't think I'm adding to it. I probably was, but it's there and it needs to move. So how do you do that? So that's why I came to you initially, to do some Reiki. And it's just, from that point on, it's been a completely different life. And the Reiki, to get into that specifically, I didn't know what it was going to feel like. But I knew I had to have an open mind, because like with all the stuff I'd done up to that point, you had to have an open mind. Because if you go in there with your own sort of view of what's going to happen and then it doesn't happen, you're going to think, well, it didn't work. Well, if you've never done it before, you don't know what it's going to be like. So just
And
have
it's
an open
different
mind.
every time for every person. So, and you know, sometimes if your expectation is that somebody has told you it's like this, you're going to experience blah and blah and blah, and you don't, then you're going to
Yeah,
feel a bit disappointed and a bit let down. So,
yeah, that's it.
yeah, I
And
would say to people, just don't have an expectation, because it is
no,
different
it's just
for everybody every time, and we're all individuals. So
yeah,
absolutely fabulous listening to you talking about that. And something I want to just recap on is I talk about the emotional scale a lot,
mm,
and 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 really to sum that up, it's your body is built the way you've just been describing it, but it comes out in emotions and feelings as a warning.
mm,
So yes, when you are feeling a bit crap, what are you thinking about, but also what are you telling yourself?
yeah,
And then if it's you, those feelings and emotions actually shape your actions. So
yeah,
that's where emotional eating, for example, will come from. You're feeling a bit crap, a
exactly.
bit down,
Yeah,
search for comfort, then you go hanging off the
yeah,
cupboard door that's got all the sugar in. You know, I mean, obviously
exactly.
more
Yeah,
to it than that. But the the point that we do have that innate emotional guidance system built in, you, what you've just described is learning to be aware of it, so
yeah,
that you can take notice of the warnings. So
yeah,
when it pops up, rather than oh, you know, I'm doomed, I'm right at the
yeah,
bottom of the scale, I'm feeling crap, it's more of a, okay, thank you for bringing that to my attention, and take that on board. My body's screaming at me to do something about it because I'm not happy.
yeah,
So rather than be feared of it, embrace it. Thank you.
yeah,
I
yeah,
you needed to bring that to my attention. I'm tapped in, I'm aware of it, I've taken it on board. I know I need to shift my emotion up
yeah,
scale and do
yeah,
something, a different action
yeah,
or a different thought process to do that. And
yeah,
we've talked about that in other videos, how that works as well. But the interesting, you were talking about the subconscious mind protecting you. Absolutely. And also when you're talking about the body's recall of, I've had this feeling before, it's that comfort
yeah.
zone. It doesn't remember the actual incident
No,
like a screenshot. It remembers the emotion connected to the incident.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
memory of the emotion rather than the actual incident. So that's why sometimes when people are not able to
exactly.
recall, when the police come into the hospital room, what happened for you to make a statement, they
Yeah,
talk more about how they felt rather than what actually occurred
yes,
at the traffic lights, at
that's
the
it. Yeah,
junction, over the roundabout, knocking the dog over, whatever. That
yeah,
doesn't come back so easy. So if we start to have an experience where those feelings are starting to be generated again, that's the
yeah,
subconscious taking them back to the recall.
yeah,
There are so many layers of your energy field, and each layer
yeah,
has a layer of chakras. So the
yeah,
Reiki goes through the chakras through per layer, and so that takes a little bit of time as well. That's not going to happen in one session, although a
no,
lot of people do report, and Jenny did the other day, that after one session they feel a difference. Whereas we're all individuals, it will depend where you are. If you're open
yeah,
to it,
yeah,
you've got a lot of knowledge, you've taken the trouble to do the research, but not put too much attention into the negative side of it. You've turned it
yeah,
into it from what our sessions of don't give attention, go
yeah,
energy goes where attention flows. Just make sure that you flip it, that I'm aware of that now, I get what's happening, and this is what I need to do about it,
yeah,
rather than
yeah,
staying there.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's when
yeah,
you feel those emotions, it's really important to not suppress, not to hide, not to ignore, not to just think about something else. We're
yeah,
not saying that it's, oh, just think about something nice, you'll be fine. That's not
yeah.
what we're saying at all, is
Just
it?
yeah,
It's,
just
you know,
sit with it,
start
go
the
through it,
process. Yeah, yeah.
and like you say,
Accept
the
it.
subconscious, yeah, because the subconscious mind, it's got no concept of time.
No.
So if this feeling comes up and it feels familiar, oh, it's that scary thing, then it reacts in a way as though that scary event, whatever it was, is happening for the first time. It
Yeah.
knows no different. So whether something's happening, you can think about an event that you went through in your past, and those feelings will come up associated with it. And your subconscious will go, oh, it's happening. And it's not, you just sat there thinking. It doesn't
Yeah.
know the difference between something happening for real and you thinking. So that's how important your thoughts are. If you're thinking about bad things all the time, your subconscious mind thinks those things are happening.
Yeah, they're
If
real.
you can have throwaway thoughts. You have 60 odd thousand thoughts a day, and that's not happening with all of them. But if you sit with a thought and let it grow, and then the emotions come up, that's when that will happen. So again, back to the law of attraction.
Yeah, it's momentum.
It's not just thinking about these things. You've got to be in a place where you're feeling as though you're already there.
Yeah,
It's the
that's to
feeling that
attract.
drives
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's the same thing. If you're feeling that something bad's going to happen, you're attracting it. And if you start feeling those horrible feelings, then your subconscious says, "Oh, we've been here before. Bury that. We
Yeah,
don't like it." It's
yeah,
all the same thing. It's not what you're thinking. It's what you're feeling.
yeah.
That's the key. It's the feeling bit.
That's absolutely. I
So
always say it's not
so
the
yeah,
words that you say either, is it? It's the vibration that the words bring
yes, you
that's
can
being
say
felt.
stuff. Yeah, you can have a conversation with someone and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I'll do that. Don't worry, I'll sort that." You'll pick up on the fact that they've got no
Yeah.
desire whatsoever to do that. And the opposite, if they are going to go and do that, you'll know that.
You get
And
it.
simple things like that, you pick up on it. That's again, it's the frequency, it's the vibes.
Yeah. We can all
So
pick that
really,
up. Yeah. We can all pick that because
yeah,
we talked about that before when we've got a loved one and you walk into the room and you say, "You're okay." "Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm fine." And you think, "No,
yeah,
you're not. You're okay." "No, I'm fine." And you think, it's just you're picking
yeah,
up on that vibration, isn't it? That energy. And the
yeah, that's
universe will
it.
do the same. Just go back to that momentum point though, because that's really key. Because you can spiral quite quickly if you allow your
Oh
thoughts
yeah,
to
yeah,
continue. So the way I love the way Abe Esther Hicks describes the momentum. 15 seconds. If you hold a thought for 15 seconds,
yes,
you will attract a similar thinking thought.
yeah,
Hold that for a further 15 seconds and you've got momentum, and you will then get another similar thinking
yeah,
thought. You get to
yeah,
68 seconds, you've manifested those thoughts,
yeah,
they come to life. You live in that experience. So it's
yeah,
breaking that thought, breaking that momentum
yeah,
before it
yeah,
gets out of control. And we can do a lot of work with that with anxiety, because
yeah,
anxiety stems from those thought processes. Because the
yeah,
minute your thoughts get out of control, it affects your breathing as well. And it is a very real experience.
yeah,
Because of that, the moment you have a thought, you get an emotion, a vision connected to that thought,
yeah,
and an emotion connected to the vision, to the thought.
yeah,
So people say times are
yeah.
healing.
I mean,
Well, it's not, is it? If you're going to recall something constantly as your dominant thought process of a low
yeah,
vibration, then you're going to have that low feeling more often than not
yeah,
as your dominant
and
feeling.
that's it. And if this has been a chronic process, you can become an expert at it. I mean, I used to go. I could go from a place of being quite calm and level to rock bottom in
Yeah.
a matter of seconds.
Mm.
Those thoughts can. That's how quick it can happen. It's not minutes or hours. I could sit there and within less than a minute, I could be at rock bottom. That's how easy it is.
Yeah.
So over time, once you understand what's going on, and you can jump in, like you say at the start, hang on a minute, I don't want to go down that place. It's just as easy, if not easier, to think a happier thought, an opposite thought. It's just you're used to it.
Yeah.
The brain is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So there's all these neurons that are wired together in a certain way that takes you to that dark place. That pathway is well worn, so it's the first place it goes.
Yeah.
And for years, scientists thought, well, you can't change that. Well, you can.
Yes, you can.
Plasticity.
Yeah.
So and what it's not that you get rid of that old connection and all those old things. You don't get rid of anything from your brain. It remembers everything. You can't get rid of it. But what you can do
It's
is you
all in
can
your
create a new
energy
pathway.
field. Mm.
Create a new pathway and use that more and more. And the stronger that gets, and the better that pathway gets, your brain will use the strongest path. So
Mm.
eventually it'll use the new path and forget the old one, and that will disappear. It's still there, it just won't use it. So scientifically, that's what goes on. But for us normal people, it's just practice. It's being aware of it and stopping it when it happens. And like you say, 15 seconds. You know, it used to take me seconds to go to rock bottom. Now I know what it looks like now. I can pick it up straight away and I can catch it, and I'll have a chat with myself and say, "What are you doing, idiot?" You know, and I'll just swing it the other way. And it's the same process. So your subconscious mind will use this process to take you down to the bottom. Your conscious mind can jump in and say, "Hang on, let's do the same thing, but I'm in charge." And you can go the other way and go back up to the top of the emotional scale. It's that simple. It's the same process.
It's simple, but it's doing it. It's making sure
It's
you
not
do
easy.
it. Yeah.
It's not easy.
And we talk about this a lot with saying the same with the law of attraction. It sounds simple. It is simple process.
Yeah.
But the hard part is doing the action, being consistent and believing it to make sure that it happens.
It's it brings me. I remember one of the sessions up at the cottage, and it's the whole thing of your subconscious will be negative straight away. Whatever it is you're trying to do, it'll put a barrier up. Yeah, but this might happen, that might happen. It's just trying to keep you safe, because if you're doing something different, it sees that as a change, and it sees a change as danger.
In a chat
box. Yeah, it's that.
More of a conscious
and I remember,
than a subconscious thought.
Yeah, and I remember saying to you that I like these sayings. I know you've got them all over the place, and that, and it was of all things, you know, 50-year-old bloke. It was Peter Pan, and it was one line from that film, you know, because obviously what he's challenged with is thinking happy thoughts so he can fly, and his fear is, well, what if I fall? And I think it was Tinkerbell, whatever it was, says, yes, my boy, but what if you fly? And that's it. It's just a simple thought. So whatever you're going through, as soon as that negative thought comes in, it's like, just challenge it.
Yeah, it's your thought. You're in control of it. See, I always say to people, see those thoughts coming by on a conveyor belt, like you say, 60,000 thoughts plus a day coming past. In if this thought's not making you feel very nice, and I don't want that thought, chuck it away, pick another one as it goes past. It's your choice. It is a choice. You can make that new path by making that choice to do so.
Yeah, and I know every scenario I'm in, if my little voice is saying, yeah, but what if this, what if that?
Yeah.
And I can't, it's not like it's always gone that way. It's always happened that way. Therefore, that's why it's doing it. Because I'll sit there and think, well, that's never happened before.
Yeah.
And that happens every single time. So it's lying to me all the time. Whatever it is I'm thinking, as soon as it starts, and I'll think, well, that's never happened before. So why is it going to happen now? And again, it's like a muscle you're training. The more you do it, the easier it gets, the quicker it is to spot, and then the less chance there is of it happening. So in a roundabout way, back to where we were before, because I've sort of gone through that process, I'm not burying as much emotion as I used to.
Good.
But there's a big surplus of emotion that's sat there waiting to get out. And through the Reiki that I went through with you, I had some very strange experiences. I know Jenny found it difficult to describe, and it is, because we're all different, so we all have our own perception of what's going on. So we will have completely different experiences. We may actually go through exactly the same experience, but we describe it differently, or vice versa, or whatever. But the thing is, if you can just lie there and let go. I mean, I know my very first one, I was lying there and you had your hands on my head, and instantly something was going on straight away. Again, that may be different for other people. I've had situations where I've had my legs gone flying up in the air or something like that.
Running. I think you were running somewhere and you were asleep.
There was one where you said afterwards, did you feel that heat in such a place? And I was like, no. And you said it was absolutely burning, and I felt nothing.
Yeah.
And then there's the more profound ones where it's not just a feeling in your body. You do feel things moving up and down and things like that. You can
the gurgle that sounds like you're hungry.
Oh, the gurgle. I was panicking.
That's the energy shifted through your body.
Yeah.
And I forgot to say, don't worry if you hear that, because most people think, oh my God, I should have eaten, or I'm going to trump or something. That's people's fear. But it's the energy traveling through your body. And if it does come out that way, it's a release. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And as well as that, over time, the more sessions I did, I was getting more, not just the physical sort of feelings when it was happening, but there was a lot of visualization, a lot of things that were appearing, if you like. You know, I've had like not just one guardian angel appear in the room. There was like millions. You know,
You're already in the room with the guardian angels, darling.
and some of the yeah, and some of them were like not life size. You know, there was one where I think that whatever it was, the head filled the room. You know, it's quite surreal, and again, it's just let go, just let it happen, just see what happens.
There's always have the healing angel with us, always.
Yeah.
You know, and at the beginning of the session, I always call in for our friend. And
and again, this sort of stuff, people might get to this point and think, oh, it's starting to sound a bit weird now. It's like, just what have you got to lose? Just give it a go. Just let go and see what happens.
Works,
you'll be quite surprised. And you mentioned earlier as well, it's, you know, you finish the session, you go home. That's not the end of it.
No,
it carries on. And you do notice that things happen, and again, pick up on them. And I got to the point where I was thinking, am I picking up on too much stuff? Am I just thinking everything is something? And
that's your analytical mind again.
Yeah, once you settle down, you'll know the difference. But I think the next level for me then was after doing the training. And
you
the
did
first thing I
level 1,
mentioned
didn't
about
you? Yeah.
My first recollection of the Reiki 1 was I was in one of those comfy chairs while you were doing the attunements. We were all taking turns, and I was just meditating. And I don't know how long it was for, but I was there. I couldn't feel a chair. There was nothing. Couldn't feel anything at all. There was just nothing. And I've never managed to achieve that again. But I know that that's a place a lot of people strive for, because you've got rid of all that rubbish then, because there's nothing at all, no sensations or anything. And that was quite surreal. It really was.
Well,
I'll never
if you think
forget it.
about that environment at the time, there's attunements going on. I've set the house up before everybody's arrived to be, you know, ready, cleansed, called in, protection, whatever we need. So the energy in the cottage, because that's kind of always going on, you've picked up on that. So your heightened awareness through the session. I mean, what I tend to do is leave a self-healing meditation playing for you all to practice while I take you out one by one to do the attunements. But the energy is still in the building.
Oh yeah, you feel it. It is. It's strong. And now, I mean, we did. There was a practice we did. There was a recording you gave us so many days, whatever.
21 days.
So as well.
Self-healing.
That's it. So
21 days is habit forming. So
But what I found was, when I used it now, I'm pretty much going to one place. And it was thinking about this conversation that we spoke briefly, that going to that one place is great, and I can feel it working. But you know, there's a number of chakras, and the energy goes through you. So if I'm just working on one place, that's all well and good, but it's not going completely. There's no flow. I'm just focusing on one area. So I know just from talking to you before we started this that I need to go back to doing that, to do the whole thing.
I have said that to quite a few people that have been through in lockdown. Don't forget, you've had your level 1, you can do your self-healing, and you will notice the difference, you'll notice the shift. But you're right. If you can, you know, you can be sat next to a friend and they're complaining about a bad knee, you can just go straight to the knee and work on the knee. That's fine. But if you're going to do a full session to give you that self-care, but don't forget that is also heightening your intuition, your awareness, what you're picking up on by feeling it in yourself. When you go from all the hand positions down, you're then understanding and having that connection, so you can recognize that in others, maybe when you do something else. So the more self-healing that you do, you can't do any harm, can you? You know, Reiki is pure love and healing, so you're never going to do any harm. There's nothing negative about it. You know, we're not working with spirits and ghosts and dead people and the devil. It's pure love and healing, universal life force energy, and it is for releasing. It's there for us
It
to use.
is.
And if you've got it yourself, then wow, use it. Absolutely use it.
And again, this isn't some new thing someone's dreamt up. This goes back thousands of years.
Yeah.
And the big thing that I guess one of the most important points to note is I mentioned in our previous video, you were beating some stuff out of me because I was obsessed with research. What was it that caused this? I was digging in my past, and there's lots of modalities for healing. There's all sorts of stuff out there. Some of it is quite raw, where you do have to bring up these things again consciously. A lot of people write stuff, journal it. A lot of people go to psychotherapists to try and find it and uncover it. And during my research, I was trying to find out what it was. And I was going back through a lot of stuff in my past that might not have even been it, but I was going through a lot of horrible stuff, researching. But all I was doing was, like I said before, I was just reinforcing these mental pathways of this stuff. So a lot of these things that people say they use to heal themselves are causing more harm than good, because you're just reinforcing these things that happened in the past because you're consciously looking into them, writing about them and stuff. So you come to something like Reiki. Yes, you've got some stuff trapped in there. You don't need to know what it is, what caused it, when it happened, how long it's been there.
Anything.
You're just releasing the energy. It doesn't matter. And that was I think out of everything we've gone through, the law of attraction was obviously up there. The Reiki was what I came for. But when I got to that realization, which is quite simple, which was, doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it came from. Yeah, but what about this? Because I would sit there and say, well, I did regression on my birth. It doesn't matter. And then this happened when I was a child. It doesn't matter. And you keep saying to me, it doesn't matter. Just let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. Just
be. And that was probably the biggest shift for me through the Reiki process. That it doesn't matter where this stuff came from, why it's there. You can get rid of it without it touching you again, and then it's gone. Because the only reason that horrible, nasty stuff is still there is because you keep digging it up. And you tell yourself this story. You'll be out with your friends. Oh yeah, this happened today. I mean, this always happens to me because and you tell this story. I know people now. Oh, it's me thingy, or it's this, or it's that. It always happens. No, stop telling the story. I know someone who you're reaffirming it. I know someone in particular. I won't go into detail of it, but they tell this story, and I just bang my head against the wall because I just want to shake them and say, it's all being created by you. Just stop it. And
it's hard, that, isn't it? Really hard, because once you're aware of it, it's like a switch, isn't it? And you can't be unaware of it. So, and the more you get into it for yourself, I mean, that's what it's for. You are the most important person in your world. It's for your well-being. But then you people that you love, and you hear them, and you want to be saving everybody and telling them. And I think I might have told the story. I do remember once being in the queue in Asda in Broughton. Is it Asda that's got the George? Yeah. I was upstairs in the queue. It was this big long queue, and I was in a rush, and I just dove in for whatever. And you could hear these assistants, the people on the till, moaning to each other really loud. And I was like probably sixth person in this queue, and there was people behind me. And it was killing me. It was absolutely killing me. It's like, oh, cringe, or, moan. And I just come out with, you could just think about something nice instead. And all the queue in front of me just turned round, and I wanted to die on the spot. I was like, did I say that out loud? But it's painful. Once you are kind of living further up the scale, more often than not. I mean, of course, we all dip up and down. That's what flow is, isn't it? Go with the flow. Just recognize that you're there and what you need to do to go back again. And I just was like, I can't deal with this, but I need these things, and I just wanted it to stop. So just be really mindful when you start living in your bubble and everybody thinks you're a unicorn.
Absolutely.
That you know, it's a nice place to be. Don't try and justify it. Don't make excuses for it. Just go with it, enjoy it, but try not to force it on anybody. Try not to force it on anybody. Be gentle. Be gentle.
There's a lot of you see these quotes and things written by famous people and these phrases and things, and when you first see these things, you can think, oh, they're just airy fairy things. They don't mean anything. When you understand the law of attraction and all this sort of stuff, you know exactly what that quote means and what it's getting at.
And it means more to you, doesn't it, than just some words.
And it's because people, I don't go for those fluffy quotes. It's like, well, actually, there's a science behind it. Not a science, you know. But it's difficult to explain them because you need to understand what's behind it. But it's simple things like being in the present moment. You know, if you're worrying, your mind is just creating a future that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, if you're happy and joyful, if you live in the now, you're not worried about the future. It hasn't happened yet.
That's
and if you're living in the past,
is gone, hasn't it?
That's gone. You can't change it. It is what it is. It happened that way because that's the way it happened.
You just change how you react to it.
So if you can start, because that was the other key thing for me. And Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now.
Oh, fabulous!
I read chapter 1 about 5 times. So I just at first I just couldn't get my head around it, but after chapter 1 5 times, I then moved on, and you know I still. You know, again, I'm scratching the surface, But again, it's if you can just focus on where you are now and not worry about what might happen in the future or what's happened in the past, it's so much easier. It's like a huge weight's lifted off you, and that's kind of where I am at the moment. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, it is. You're
telling yourself a load of lies anyway.
Yeah. Well, why do we believe something that's not fact, that's not happened, that isn't real, but it feels real, and that's because you've brought it to life. So, change your thought patterns to something else. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I just thought of something else.
And you, because you've got, as I said, 60, 70,000 thoughts a day that will go through your head. I mean, you can't sit with each one of those and think, why am I thinking that? Stuff just comes and goes.
Yeah.
But when something stays and you keep having this, you keep coming back to that same thought, that's where you need to pick up on it. Why am I coming back to this?
Yeah.
Before it takes you down. What's going on? Why am I thinking that? And you can nip it in the bud and
just
move
choose
on.
again. Just choose again. Gabby Bernstein's exercise. Choose again. Reach again for a happy. Go to your happy place. Reach for a happy thinking thought. Just choose again. Choose again.
You might be
thinking, a choice.
Yeah. So if you're thinking, oh, what if I fall? It's like, what if you fly?
Yeah.
For me, that's how I do it. It's as simple as that. What if? Because again, if I start analysing stuff, well, has this happened before? No. So why do you think it's going to happen now? When it's not like, well, it has happened before, which would be one thing, but this is stuff that's never happened before. So why am I thinking it's all doom and gloom? You know, it's crazy. And I know I've done all my research. I know where that comes from, and that's sort of my background project, which is to just ignore it all. But yeah, the Reiki means that you can whatever is there, you can get rid of it without visiting it, without giving it a voice. It doesn't matter what it is. So you don't need to do the research, which digs it up and causes more pain. Just shift it. It doesn't matter what it is, and that's the beauty of it. It just doesn't bring all that stuff up again. You don't need to think about it. Because even then you're thinking, is it this, is it that? And most of your thoughts are incorrect anyway.
Yeah.
Because I saw this somewhere. Yeah, if you have a thought about a situation you were in that was horrible in your past, and here's the thing, if you remember that thought visually in your mind about what happened, and if you're watching it in the third person, and if you don't know what that means that you're watching this event happen and you're watching yourself in the event. If you have thoughts like that, that's all wrong for a start, because you can't have remembered it like that because you were in the situation. So it would have been if it's a first person memory where you're looking at it through your eyes, then there's more chance that that's real. But if people will have these, they're like, oh yeah, I have this memory where I'm doing this, and I'm watching myself. your brain's made all that up. It didn't happen like that. It can't have. You can't have remembered it like that because you can't have watched yourself doing it. So with things like that, you can look at some of these memories that you dig up and think, well, that's all wrong anyway.
Yeah, well, that's you and
Tell
your
yourself a
analytical.
story that.
Yeah, let's go back to being in the now, okay? Because before we go off on
Yes.
another tandem, because we're both quite capable of. That's why we need to do these
Oh yeah,
episodes
sorry,
one after the
my
other.
fault.
No, it's not your fault. I just want to bring it back to being in the now because we're getting quite deep there with that third person. So
Yeah,
but we were in a nice
sorry.
place, being in the now, being present, okay? That
Yeah.
comes back to what is well-being. Well-being. We are a human being, but are we a well-being? That's well-being in the true sense of the words. Do we know how to just be, to be present, to be aware, to be kind to ourselves and others, to be happy, to be you, just be you.
Mm-hmm.
Human being, not a human doing. So to just be
Yeah,
in the
I was just
present.
going to say that.
Yeah. So let's
And
wind it up
it's
now because we've had a great session, and we make sure we've got something left to talk about next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, what are you trying
And I
to
know
say?
it went a bit deep there. So yeah, like you say, it did go off in a bit of an odd tangent there, but and it is as simple as that. Like you say, you're a human being. Just be you. There's what 7 billion people on the planet. Yeah, you are completely individual. There's no one else like you. There's
Yeah.
never been anyone else like you, and there never will be.
Yeah.
So
Makes you very.
a lot of your problems will. Yeah. So and you've I think Wayne Dye said it. Don't die with your song still in you, or something like that.
Lovely.
Because we've all got something, and a lot of this stuff can be quite simply your ego stopping you from being who you really are. That can be enough to cause these emotions to get buried and stuff, because there's that resistance. You're living your life as someone else,
But a
and
lot
if
of
you can
that can
strip that
be.
away, get rid of that.
You froze on me. So a lot of that can be
Did I?
a limiting belief from somebody else projecting their fears onto you, and
Yeah.
that becomes a paradigm. We are going off on one now, right?
Yeah.
So we'll do that next time, right? Beliefs in thoughts and paradigms of projected fears. That's a good one, because we're either in the state of love or
So
fear. So let's stay in a good place.
So
know that the
so if there's ever if there's ever anything that you're faced with, it's something that you're going to do, your brain will have this battle of, oh, you shouldn't do that because this, that, and the other. But when that idea or concept comes up of you need to do this, you'll get a feeling immediately. You'll get a feeling. React to that. Don't go into the thoughts of what if, because then your subconscious is talking you out of it.
You've gone then. If you go to what if, that's it. That's gone.
Yeah.
This is going to run out of time in about 4 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm really conscious of that. So brilliant session again. Absolutely loving this. Positive energy. It can only get better and better with each one. I think where we were going off then is a great place to pick up on next time. So we'll get our heads together and see where that's going to take us as well. But for the meantime, thank you very much for joining.
No, thank you.
Cabin again, talking about our well-being and the wonders of Reiki, and you're looking fabulous. So obviously it's working for you. All this positive mindset.
I mean, again, stuff like this is great, because it's difficult to talk like this to the family and friends and stuff. I get a few confused looks, but it's great to be able to talk about it. And for me, my confidence has grown because I did so much research and learned so much about this. That gave me the confidence to believe in it. And even now, it is quite spiritual, and people can't get their heads around it sometimes, but I'm happy with that, and I'll argue with people.
Embrace it. Embrace your woo-woo, as I always say. Embrace your woo-woo.
Yeah.
Right then. So until next time, I'll see you. Take care.
Right. Okay. See ya.